It is time for something a little bit different. This is something that I've been wanting to try in StarCraft 2 for a little while, and last week I casted a couple of matches of professional gamers in StarCraft 2, and a lot of you seem to enjoy those videos. So what I got for you today is something completely new, something that I haven't done yet, and that is to cast a best of 3 series between 2 players. In the bottom left corner, we got the red Terran player. In this series, it is going to be none other than GuMiho. And his opponent is going to be the blue Zerg player, spawning in the bottom right corner of Newkirk Precinct, and it's going to be none other than Losira. Now, like I said, this is going to be a best of 3. This does mean that this is going to not just be a single game in this one video, but I'm gonna try and include the entire series of games in this video as well. So it may very well be 2 series, or 2 games rather, or maybe even 3. I haven't seen them myself yet either, so it's going to be something that we will both get to experience. And the cool thing about this is that this is actually all played in the new patch. Patch 3.8 hit just a couple of days ago, so it's gonna be interesting to see how the metagame will develop, because as it is right now in StarCraft 2, it seems like strategies are all over the place, and this was actually played during the SGL, which is a series of tournaments that's been going on for a little while already. They're basically relatively minor tournaments with still, you know, money on the line. Obviously, we're not gonna participate in tournaments where there's no money or like seats to be earned, but this is basically all played during the off season in StarCraft 2. Now that the BlizzCon Grand Final has been played, we see this massive patch, we see changes to the metagame, and we will see how the strategies will start developing. Now, the interesting thing to note right here from GuMiho is that he got this gas very, very early. He is, however, going to be going for the Reaper here as well, so he's going to be able to start at the very least, you know, a little bit of a RAS. But normally the reason why we see such an early gas go down is for a little bit of, factory play. Normally you go for the super fast factory. It looks like the factory does indeed go down here eventually, but I'm going to be interested to see what GuMiho decides to go for. Now, these games were already casted live as well by Wardy. I believe he does so on the Thursday and on the Friday over at his Twitch channel. And he was generous enough to provide me with these replays for all of us to enjoy. And he mentioned that this series of games was going to be absolutely epic. So I'm excited to see what is going to be happening here. Losira is looking that, he's looking like he's just going to simply play a, at the very least, early game macro-focused play. Usually Zerg players are really trying to maximize their drone income, but it's simply getting out as many of them as possible without really losing all too many. Obviously, both of these players extremely high level. In case you are unfamiliar with them, Losira used to go by the name of Kang Ho for a little while as well, before switching back to Losira. He's actually one of the highest APM players in the world. I remember seeing videos about him a couple of years ago where the guy was like averaging like 4 to 600 APM or so, depending on how long the game would go. Absolutely tapping those buttons like mad, but definitely a top 5 Zerg in the world. And his opponent also definitely would be considered to be a top 5 Terran. I believe GuMiho never won like a major tournament in his life, but he's always done very well. And obviously, usually he does get eliminated by, you know, the people that are just slightly above his level. But that definitely does not mean that he is, you know, not a force to be reckoned with. He's extremely good and can easily take a tournament in the near future. It's going to be exciting, though, to see how both of these players are going to be opening up. But anyhow, it looks like for the moment, we see that double factory opener go down for the Terran player. And he's got that second reactor here on the barracks built as well. He's going to be switching that over with the factory. That does mean that he's indeed going to be able to produce those Cyclones. Now, Cyclones got changed up a lot. They're much more of like a frontline type of unit, and while the Hellions are already out, the Cyclones are going to be a great addition to this army, because they're extremely powerful at taking out queens and taking out spine crawlers and buildings in general, and I think that's going to be the main source of defense we will see out of Losira here for the early stages of the game. He does have a lot of Zerglings out. It actually looks like GuMiho for a second right here at the Star Sense to check out this ramp, but he does not quite know of these Zerglings. And now that the Hellions are moving out across the map, the Zerglings are going to try their very best, or at the very least I assume that the Zerglings are going to try their very best to attack into this vulnerable natural, and there they do indeed start moving out. At the same time though, GuMiho has got a lot of army here already. He's producing 4 Hellions at a time. We do see that armory here about to finish up as well. That does mean that all of the Hellions can be moved into Hellbeds if he decides to do so, and it looks like he wants to start pushing here up the ramp very shortly. There we do indeed see that switch into the Hellbeds. Hellbats, and here is where the pressure will go down. A lot of queens are out right here for Losira. He's gonna start producing more and more Zerglings. We do see that Spire right here at the front as well, and it looks like the Zerglings are gonna be pulled back from the natural of the Terran back towards the natural of the Zerg. He will need to hold on. Obviously, the Zerg's goal here is to try and survive this push with as many drones as he possibly can, but it does look like there are a lot of Terran pieces. This is a little bit terrifying, but a nice surround does go down here in the corner of the natural. But this is not quite over just yet. More and more Hellions are running across the map. They're gonna try their very best to do as much damage as possible. But so far, Losira has definitely held on very, very nicely. Will he move up the ramp though? Obviously, he can move these Hellions into Hellbats as well if he wants to. He can most definitely get a lot of splash damage done with that. The Queen does end up falling here as well. And while the Spire did just finish up, and the first Hellions are gonna, or the first Mutalisk are gonna start morphing in right now, this is gonna be very difficult, as these Hellbats will be able to get a lot of damage done if the Zerg is not careful with its positioning. Nice couple of kills there for the Terran. He's gonna start walking down the ramp once again. That Spinecrawler definitely poking away here for a while. And while the drones at the very least survived somewhat in the main base, the Hellions are out and they're gonna start at the very least saving the day here eventually. Not a whole lot of units out for the Terran right now that can truly shoot up. I wonder what the Terran has in store right now for defenses, and it looks like we can already see that right now with this many Cyclones in production. So Cyclones are not nearly as powerful to anti-air as they used to be. They used to be much stronger against it, but they can still lock onto air units. And now that you can quite easily produce 4 at a time relatively early on into the game, it's going to be interesting if this is going to be enough for the Terran to hold on to all of these mutas that are out on the map. Now it looks like the barracks has been sacrificed here. This is a huge tell for Losira that it indeed is going to be a mech based army. So he probably will try to, at the very least, continue with this muta production for the time being. He's got that third base coming up here as well. And while the Hellions are still moving around the map, it looks like so far the Overlord vision has been sufficient to make sure that these Hellions are not just simply going to try and do a lot of damage. Once again, this is like the thing about Korean players. They have these weird star senses where they sort of know where the opponent's units are going to be at. We saw that earlier with the Hellions moving up the ramp here for just a little bit. You know, just sniffing out that Zerglings could potentially be there. And at the same time, we see the same thing happening right here for these poor Hellions. And the Hellions do indeed get taken out. But at the same time, those are a lot of Cyclones. They do get scouted out right now as well. But the question is, are there enough mutas? No, I don't think 4 mutas is going to be enough for this whatsoever. Obviously, GuMiho will need to start locking on. He does successfully do so. Nice little bit of use right there with the high ground. Cannot quite, you know, lock onto those targets for forever. But he's got to be extremely careful, as obviously, as long as these units have vision, these mutas are going to end up falling. 6 more are actually going down right now. I wouldn't be surprised if this will force the cancel on the third base. Looks like that is not going to be the case, but look at the damage that these Cyclones do indeed do. Nice pickoff right there. Does manage to get one of the Cyclones, and while they will be forced to move up the natural ramp right now, the question is, does Zerg have enough to hold on to this aggression? Does he have enough mutas to deal with all of those Cyclones? Queens are allowed to join into the fight as well. They're gonna be shoving back these units at the very least for the time being, and it looks like this is just barely going to be enough. For some reason, when I initially saw the Cyclones and the Hellions move across the map, beautiful micro here once again, I did not think that Losira had the numbers to hold on to the initial aggression already, but it looks like he right now has 44 Harfesters opposed to 36, and while the Terran definitely still has a reasonable economy, he does not really have a whole lot here to follow this up with. He's still just producing out of those 2 factories. It looks like he is finally going to be starting up another barracks again after losing the initial one, but right now the mutas are on the prowl and they're going to be able to do a lot of damage if the Terran is not careful. Missile turrets are gonna be, you know, ready to go up right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if Zerg is gonna start pushing here. Look how many Zerglings there are out on the map. He's gonna start producing a lot of roaches as well. They get the Glio Reconstitution upgrade. Gas Geyser is already under assault, and while these Hellions are gonna be able to start moving across the map here, this once again leaves the northern part right here vulnerable, and these Zerglings are gonna be able to start moving into the natural. Once again, he will be able to do a ton of damage, and at the same time, it looks like there are already already defenses at home for Zerg to deal with these Hellions. Will it do enough, however? He can still run by into the natural if he wants to. All of the Zerglings are gonna be able to clean up all of these SCVs, and it looks like this was gonna be enough for Losira to obtain the victory, as GuMiho was forced to GG out. For some reason, I did not expect that Losira would be able to hold on to all of that aggression as nicely as he did. I mean, I've played a lot of random so far in this patch, and it's been very difficult. It didn't seem like he had enough units in that entire game, but somehow, some way, he really minimized the amount of drones that he lost. And with all those beautiful Zergling run-bys, he just got in a beautiful state in that game. That was really, really well played. So, anyway, in this second game right here, in the best of 3, we got none other than GuMiho, the blue Terran player, spawning in the top right corner of Echo, and his opponent is going to be the red Zerg player, known as Losira, who is currently 1-0 ahead. Once again, we do see that early gas geyser right here from the Terran player. It kind of depends. It does look certainly like he goes for the exact same build once again, right? Yeah, we do see once again that he is going to be adding on that refinery before the barracks, so he definitely is going to be able to go for this super early double Cyclone, double Hellion play once more. We'll have to keep a close eye out on that production tab to figure out whether or not there's going to be any kind of changes in the strategies. Now, the cool thing is that for the next couple of months, at the very least the next couple of months, it may even be like a half year to a year, we're gonna see like a lot of these weird strategies come out of all 3 races in StarCraft 2. Usually whenever any kind of major patch goes live, and in the past really the only things we've seen that are of this scale, I suppose, are, you know, the releases of expansions. And kind of this feels like a multiplayer only kind of expansion, I suppose. But really, like, it's gonna take a very long time before players will once again figure out. Ooh, bit of an uncharacteristic kind of play there. You see that? That was weird. He must have boxed them accidentally and like right-clicked one of the mineral patches. But anyway, for like the next couple of months at the very least, we will see a lot of this weird 2-base-ish aggression, and it's gonna take quite a little while before players will start to figure out how to play macro games in this current state of the game. Obviously, balance is going to be something that we can discuss for quite a little while already, but it certainly does look like we're in a pretty good spot, at the very least as far as Zerg versus Terran goes. There are a lot of viable strategies right now, and I wonder what Losira is going to go for. Obviously, he's not really going for any kind of early drone scouts here, so he doesn't really know about a whole lot just yet. And for the moment, actually, we do see that reactor go down right here for GuMiho, as well as the factory, as well as the second gas. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this gas seems a little bit sooner than the one in the previous game. Not entirely sure about that, but it does mean that he could potentially go for something a little bit different here. Because in the previous one, he decided to go for the second factory relatively quickly, and then he followed it up with, you know, a second reactor relatively quickly as well. At the same time, though, GuMiho is going to start dealing a little bit of damage right here to the natural of Losira. I would be very surprised if he manages to get a worker, and actually, wow! A little bit of a sloppy moves, or a little bit of a sloppy game so far by Losira. First putting those drones back to, you know, that single mineral patch, and then also losing a drone there to a single Reaper. Really no reason for that. We do see a super quick lair here, though. That's going to be something that will allow him to go for that quick muta once again, if he wants to do so. But here we do see that strategy change. Alright. I was wondering why that gas was so early. We do indeed see this starport go down, and the starport is going to be switched up with this tech lab right here for sure, and it's going to allow him to potentially go for like Banshee play. Now, Banshees do have a new upgrade. Upgrades, obviously. Ooh, that is not a Banshee. I was talking about the new upgrade in the tech lab right now that will give the Banshees a little bit additional movement speed, but no, we see a Raven go down. In combination? Wow, that's insane. In combination with a lot of Hellions? Alright, I was gonna assume it was gonna be Banshee like 100 times over before a Raven. Now, Ravens did most definitely receive buffs, and they definitely can do a lot of damage. I just wonder how much it's going to be. GuMiho is gonna try and do a little bit of damage. He actually does go for the run-by. Queens are already on that ramp though, and it looks like 3 of them managed to make their way through. Zerg did cut out on a lot of early game defenses here, but the question is, how many workers will end up falling? Gotta keep in mind that he's gonna be able to at the very least get a couple. Yeah, and this will definitely pay for that aggression, so that's quite nice, but he doesn't really have a whole lot to follow up this Raven with. I mean, the Raven is out right now. It basically got a couple of, you know, damage boost increases, I suppose, just because the unit is extremely uncommon. And usually, like, the issue with the Raven is that it's not going to be very powerful unless you get at least, like, 10 or so of them. Now it does look like Losira has decided to see if he can do a little bit of pressure to the Terran players. There's already Hellions waiting at the front door, so I wonder if he's even gonna try and move up this ramp. But it's actually kind of interesting. That third command center is gonna go down right now for GuMiho. This does get scouted as well by Losira, so he knows exactly what is going on, and I wonder what he decides to go for here. Looks like he's gonna go for that third base, at the very least 4 right now. We also do see the Spire go down in the natural here, and, well, we see one little changeling is gonna try and make his way across the map. But for now, Losira is kind of in the darkness. What does Terran really go for in this current metagame? What does he expect the Terran to go for? And it looks like, for now, we know the answer. There are a couple of factories out on the map already, and he's gonna start adding on more. On top of that, we also do see the armory go down, so we can see the mech upgrades go up very, very shortly as well. Obviously, siege tanks got buffed, Thors got buffed as well, and, well, so did this beautiful unit right here known as the Vikings. Vikings now actually do bonus mechanical damage to ground, which will come into play in Terran vs Terran and Terran vs Protoss. Not so much against Zerg, however, so we'll see what he decides to go for that. And he may very well be using the Vikings in the earlier stages of the game to deal with the mutas. Does he know, though, about this Spire? Does he know? No, he is not aware of the super fast Spire just yet, but considering the scouting information that he had early on in the game with the double gas taken, as well as the super fast layer, he should be aware of the fact that it's definitely an option. And here, we do indeed see that new upgrade right here, which does give the Cyclones some additional range. I wonder if that's really all that GuMiho is gonna plan on making right now. He's definitely adding on, yeah, he's adding on 5 Cyclones at a time right now, just going for the tech lab for the Cyclone range. And while this barracks will end up falling here in the middle stages of the map, he's gonna be extremely careful, because these Widow Mines are gonna be able to deal a lot of damage. I actually kind of like this. I mean, this is like a hit squad. Ooh, this is like a hit squad. Oh man, he's going for the PDD. Wow. This is like a small little hit squad that is meant to deal with the muta aggression. No Hunter-Seeker missile or any of that kind of weirdness. He's just gonna go for a couple of Vikings. And together with the Hunter-Seeker missile, he's gonna be able to defend against all these mutas just fine. That is such a cool play. No need for Thors or anything like that. He's trying to build some siege tanks right now, but it looks like there is a slight supply block for the Terran player. He's gonna be able to deal with that just a little while later. But it looks like, for now, the mutas have been neglected, and they're gonna start, well, at the very least, probably headed in towards the main base here. But I would be very surprised if they manage to do a lot of damage. Does get the full snipe there on the mule. Extremely well done. And it looks like the roaches have decided to move across the map as well. Question is, does the Terran have enough to hold on to this aggression? The siege tank will come out very shortly. Mutas are still trying to do whatever damage they can, just poke away, but obviously the siege tank is gonna be the necessity here. Siege tanks have gotten a huge buff against armored units, and guess what units are armored? Guess what units are armored? It's indeed going to be, oh man, these Hellions, or these roaches rather. He's gonna be able to start moving up the ramp here, deal as much damage as possible, but Cyclones definitely are pretty powerful against roaches as well. And while more and more roaches are currently on the production tab, I wonder how it's gonna be to deal with an army based around siege tanks and Cyclones once they reach high numbers. In particular, siege tanks are extremely powerful. I thought GuMiho was gonna move out there for a little bit. That would have been crazy. That would have been absolutely wild. At the same time, we do also see Liberators go down right there in the main base. The mutas have almost all gotten cleaned up. Looks like, well, these 2 last ones are going to try their very best to do whatever damage they can. Even gets 1 SCV on the way out as well, but those are the last mutas on this map. Now, the Hellions are doing as much damage as they possibly can. He doesn't really want Hellions anymore, that is, the Terran player. He's gonna try his very best to base his army around much higher tech units, sort of just using the Hellions as a stepping stone. At the same time, though, Losira does not have a ton of economy. He's got 3 bases saturated very, very nicely, but this map is a very old one that didn't really allow the Terran player to take a 4th base very easily, but the 3rd base is something they can defend quite nicely, just fine. And at this point, it's gonna be difficult for the Zerg player to move in here. I mean, he's gonna deal whatever damage he can. The siege tanks will be able to deal so much, though, to these roaches right here. And I believe they do up to like 70 damage right now per shot, meaning that these roaches are gonna take 3 shots, and obviously that does include splash damage as well. 3 shots to get taken out by the siege tanks. But there are so many units here already, as well as a couple of these Liberators. I wonder if this is going to be enough. Siege Tank on the high ground, Siege Tank right there in the middle. He's going to use the Corrosive Bile on these Liberators to do as much damage as he possibly can. But the Cyclones though, the Cyclones are dealing so much damage too. They're really just buffering for the Siege Tanks, and it looks like, while he's trying to brute force his way through, GuMiho will be able to pick up game number 2 and even up the score to 1-1. Well, that's it. The final game in this best of 3 series on Daybreak Alley. I love this map. This map is one of my absolute favorites of all time in StarCraft 2. But anyhow, before we talk about it, in the top right corner, we got the Terran player known as GuMiho and his opponent spawning in the bottom left corner known as Losira. Now this is going to be the final game, and it's played on Daybreak, right? Now Daybreak has got a very interesting setup. This used to be my favorite map in all of StarCraft 2, I think, together with like Overgrowth, which also is once again in a map pool. Kind of makes me feel like playing, you know, good old Heart of the Swarm again. It's been a very long time since that one has been out, and these maps are very, very old school. But the nice thing is that it's got a very cool natural design. I always really like the natural design on Daybreak. I mean, we got that ramp leading down towards the third base, and we got another ramp right here that can be extended by destroying those rocks leading towards the center of the map. But other than that, it's all like flat. It's all very, very flat, with a high ground right here that Terran players can use for siege tanks and all that. So, usually, defending the natural is going to be a little bit easier because of this high ground advantage as well that you have. But it's not quite as easy to take a third base very early on into the game. And usually it makes for dynamic games because of all of the run-by paths and whatnot that we've got. Now, whether or not this is going to be an amazing map for the current state of StarCraft 2, it's going to be something difficult to say, but I've been really enjoying playing the map so far. Anyhow, I wonder what GuMiho has planned for this game. Obviously, game number 1, we saw the Cyclone Hellion stuff. Then the second game right here, we saw the Raven in combination with the Hellions as well. And then just a full-on mech-based army where the Zerg player decided to go for a 3-base push with a lot of roaches. Did not work whatsoever. Terran mech is going to be very powerful at defending those, I suppose, like entrenched positions. But GuMiho on this map is not going to be able to take you know, such a defensive third base. I mean, there's no way he can turtle up the third base and the natural at the same time. So he's gonna have to do something a little bit differently. We do see that Hellion, or that Reaper once again, rather, go out on the map. He's gonna start venturing out into the world, see whatever he can see. And at the same time, we do see that the Terran player has followed it up with a factory right here as well. At the same time, Losira, unsurprisingly, going for the hatchery into the gas geyser, into the spawning pool, or maybe he went for the pool a little bit faster in this game. It's difficult to say at this point, but he just simply is gonna play a very safe, all-round macro game for the time being. Obviously, I don't really want to see him lose any units right here once again to that Reaper, like we saw in the previous game. Kind of sloppy. You usually don't see that at this level of play. Obviously, you really want to maximize the amount of workers that you have, and it looks like for now we are definitely looking in a very solid place. Actually skipping out a lot of the Zerglings. He's not gone for any kind of Zergling play, and the cool thing is that this time around the second Reaper is out on the map. This is something we didn't see in the past. Now, we do see that follow-up right here with the once again, we do see that follow-up right here with the factory and the starport. At the same time, though, the tech lab is going to be built on that barrack. So, once again, a different build coming out of GuMiho. He's got a couple of builds up his sleeve, and this is really, you know, what I mean with the new strategies in the new patch. It's going to be very, it's going to be a while before Terran players and Zerg players alike will figure out what strategies and build orders are going to be best. Because as of right now, it is definitely still all over the place. Now, looks like much better defense to the Hellions, or to the Reapers this time around. Not going to be able to pick up any worker kills here. But at the same time, the Hellions are already out in the map and are going to be able to deal a little bit of damage. Also, we do see the switch over here, and... What? Why do you need a tech lab to make that single Viking? We see a follow-up right here with the reactor on the barracks as well. A bit of an interesting build here, to be honest. Normally, if you rush out a tech lab like that, right, you're going to use it to really, like, defend against any kind of pressure early on, but maybe go for some offensive play with, like, a Banshee or, you know, something like that. But instead, we see a Viking come out on the map. Now, you may just start using that for some sniping purposes. I wonder, though, what he truly has got planned. And once again, wow, we do see that Raven go down. That is so cool. We also do see the switch up here. So once again, this is a fast tech lab right now. So that does mean that this Raven is going to be very early on into the game. He's going to try his very best to morph this Overseer in on that Overlord, and indeed it does manage to get morphed in. That does mean that the infested Terran is going to be able to start scouting. But at the same time, we see a group of Zerglings here in the bottom right corner of the map, and the Zerg player just slowly and surely building up that economy. He's got the 2 bases saturated. Looks like he's thinking about taking a third. Yeah, we do see that drone moving down to the 3rd base, but we see the Spire in the main base about to be finished up as well. And I wonder, is this going to be the standard to like deal with muta play early on into the game, like a hit squad of a Raven and a couple of these beautiful Vikings? I mean, that is something so strange and so unheard of, but I guess it's viable. It deals with 2 base mutas just fine. And once again, we do see there's 5 mutas go down. The thing is, like, Zerg does not have a lot of economy on 2 bases, right? To properly deal with all of this stuff. And he's not going to really be able to make a lot of mutas to, deal with all of the... oh, man. He's not going to be able to deal with all of the Vikings and the other units. Now, he's going to try his very best, GuMiho that is, to snipe this 3rd base. I don't know if he's got enough, though. He's got to be very, very careful. Mutas are going to come out shortly, but that hatchery is dropping dangerously low, and he does indeed force the cancel. What a crazy kind of games here. Like, these games are very wild. This definitely is very painful. I mean, the Terran is going to end up losing all of these units. I guess that's fine, because at the same time, that 3rd command center has already finished up in the natural of GuMiho. Very similar play, just a different way to get there. Different kind of build order to get to the same position. And we do see that super early Thor. So this time around, obviously Thors did also get buffed, by the way. They got a little bit more range, I believe, and some additional splash damage. The radius is a little bit bigger. This time around, we don't see as many Vikings. So these mutas rather are going to be on the move for quite a little while. And with one Viking dying, actually, that's rather painful. But now we've got a Thor instead. Thor, obviously one of the most immobile units in the game. Very difficult to move with. And at the same time, Zerglings are out on the map as well. Nice little lift up there. Very, very close one. But at the same time, that 3rd base is going to be under quite a little bit of threat. And these Zerglings really are just here to be a pain. It does manage to get into the main base. At this time, though, the Terran is like forced to deal with the different kinds of aggression. I mean, that 3rd base is going to end up falling if he's not careful. And these SCVs are going to take a beating here as well from all of the Zerglings. Actually, 7 of them end up falling. 8 with that one building the missile turret. And while the 3rd base didn't quite end up falling here, and the mules are going to be able to land once again, no critical damage was taken, that definitely was a nice little bit of pressure that also allowed Losira to get that 4th base up. However, wow, this is something I did not expect. We see a switch to Hydralisk. Obviously, Hydralisk are a very powerful unit now as well, just because they got an additional bit of range on that Grooved Spines upgrade right there. But they also got the additional bit of movement speed on creep. Very, very nice. And there he does see the drone transfer towards the 4th base. GuMiho that is, so he knows at the very least what is going on. At the same time, Hive is going up right here for the Zerg player, as well as a macro hatchery. And a lot of Hydras are going to be built here, as well as a couple of roaches. This is something, once again, very uncommon, something very new school, something that we couldn't see in the game a week ago. It really all comes down, though, to how well the Terran player is going to be able to deal with all of this. Double siege tank production going down right now, going full on into mech. Barracks, once again, being taken out to the sky. Is going to use it for scouting instead. 2 more factories being added on. And actually, we see a couple of... We see a couple of medevacs. Would not have expected any of those units to come out. Obviously, you can still use it for dropping as well. May very well use it to make the Thors mobile? Is that a thing? Do you drop Thors? That's the only use I can see here. What other units would you use it for? Anyhow, I guess we'll figure it out very shortly. You can still obviously go for a Doom Drop or something, but that's so risky against this type of play. Actually, very, very nice. We see an army based around Hydralisk and Vipers. Vipers, once again, a week ago, very uncommon unit. Right now, we got the Yank ability, though, that will allow them to deal with a lot of these mech-based armies quite nicely. But more importantly, we got the Blinding Cloud as well to throw on those siege tanks that got infinitely more powerful. Now, at this point, GuMiho knows exactly what is going on. He is aware of the fact that the Hive is done, but does he expect the army composition from the Zerg player to be based around Hydralisk? Obviously, Thors do a lot of bonus damage right now, right? They will be able to deal with these Hydras just fine. I believe they will two-shot them right now to do a lot of damage to them. How do the upgrades look right now for all of these units? It's actually, yeah, Vehicle Weapons 2 is just about to finish up, and I believe that these units right here are going to be at +1/+1, or maybe they've got +2 armor. Kind of depends. And we actually do see the follow-up right here with Brute Lords too. Now, Brute Lords have received a slight nerf, making the unit at the same range, I believe, as the Thor. It's kind of hard to say. They kind of changed a lot of units and then sort of changed them back again as well. It's kind of difficult to say exactly what the final changes are. But here we go. It looks like the Zerg player has decided to start moving up one of the ramps. And actually, those medevacs have got Hellbats in them? Hellbats? Wow. Actually, Parasitic Bomb does go down right here on all of these Vikings. They're going to be able to start taking a lot of damage. They're still very sustainable though. Vikings have got a surprising amount of health. And while they do eventually end up dying because they overextended for just a little bit, they killed a couple of Vipers as well, which is very, very painful. At the same time, these units... This is so scary though. It's gonna be interesting. He's gonna be able to start making a lot of Brute Lords here very soon. And really, what counter is there from the Terran player right now for Brute Lords? To have a quick look at the vision, he does know that the Hive is done. He does know about the Spire as well, but that really doesn't tell him a whole lot. That there is potentially a couple of Brute Lords coming his way very soon when these Corruptors do indeed morph in. Now, Hellbats are gonna start dropping into this fort base. There's really no defenses here whatsoever, and Hellbat drops do a ton of damage, in particular once they have blue flames, and that does indeed force the Zerg army to return home. A lot of drones immediately end up falling. They will be able to deal with all of these bases just fine. Obviously, he had these units out anyway, and he didn't really need them anymore, because he's just going to be able to deal a little bit of economy damage to the Zerg, which is fine by him. And actually, quite a lot of workers end up falling here to just 4 Hellions this late on into the game. Brute Lords, though, have started dealing damage. The base in the middle has been taken by GuMiho. He's desperately trying to morph in that planetary fortress to do as much damage here as possible. But I wonder, is there enough anti-air right now for the Terran? There are a couple of Thors out that will be able to deal with all of this stuff just fine as well. But if these Corruptors are going to take all this damage from the Thor, that's definitely an issue. Blinding Cloud going down on all of the siege tanks. He's still trying to deal as much damage here as possible. But it looks like with that planetary finishing up, and a lot of Vikings joining the fray as well, this is starting to look quite tricky. And indeed, Losira is forced to retreat. Beautiful player by GuMiho, just simply playing extremely defensive. We saw no run-bys or whatever into this extremely exposed third base. That is obviously one of the things that can easily turn the tide here. But it looks like for the moment, GuMiho is definitely going to be able to pick up a nice little lead here in this game. Losira, though, is still having a very nice army composition. He's going to be going for the +3 attack here as well. He's got the Vipers out, and he will be able to mine the gases in the middle of the map as well. The issue, though, is that Terran just simply has a little bit too much economy. This is very difficult for the Terran to deal with. He's just simply going to try, or this is very difficult for the Zerg to deal with, rather. He's going to try Losira, that is, to snipe off any upgrades that he can. Obviously, mostly just forcing the Terran player to get out of position for just a little bit. And once again, those Hellions are running by. I would love to see a run by here from Zerg as well. That third base is so extremely exposed. I mean, that is going to be able to deal so much damage, even if they're just left alone for a little bit. Obviously, the Zerglings are not going to be maxed upgraded, but they're still going to be able to deal quite a punch at this point in the game. Now, question is, what kind of composition from Zerg deals with a maxed out mech army? And that is what makes this so difficult for the Zerg player to decide. They need a massive concave if they want to make this work. And obviously, the only way they're really going to be able to achieve that on a map like Daybreak is if they manage to, somehow, some way, pull all of the units out of position. It looks like that is exactly what he's trying to do right now. Probably wants to go for the Blinding Cloud there on the siege tank if he wants to engage in this area. Oh, does go for the Yank instead, and he does manage to get a couple of these Thors out, which is very nice, but there are no Brute Lords out just yet to really start packing a punch here to the Terran units, and it looks like Losira is just slowly but surely throwing away a lot of units. He is gonna follow it up with more and more Vipers, but it feels like it's a little bit, it's feeling a little bit desperate. It's feeling a little bit desperate right now for Losira. I mean, he's throwing away a lot of units to try and get a little bit bit of damage done, but he's really just waiting for GuMiho to start moving across the map, and it seems like we have arrived at this moment. Now, this is the point where Terran can easily do a lot of damage. If he is not careful, however, and he sieges up in the wrong position, oh man, that is not the wrong position. If he sieges up in the wrong position, though, it could easily get overrun. But at this point, the Brute Lords are desperately trying to morph in. A lot of Hydras are on the production tab as well, and they will be able to deal with these units quite well if they manage to connect to them. But against this many sieged up tanks, look how quickly they dealt with that hatchery. It just fell down after just a couple of shots. And I'm starting to feel a little bit desperate here for Losira. He's got a lot of units still. He's going to be able to deal quite a little bit of damage, but there are so many siege tanks here, and with so many thrown away units from the Zerg, it's very tricky for them to really engage here. Now, a couple of proper Blinding Clouds, though, can still do a lot of damage. Obviously, he still has... Oh, man. Nice. Beautiful. Obviously, he still does have a lot of units here as well, but look at the amount of siege tanks. Those siege tanks are all over the creep, and while the Hydras will be able to close the distance faster than they ever could in the past, slowly but surely, GuMiho is strategically moving across the map. He has taken all of the bases on his side as well, completely shutting down run-bys in those areas. And while he still does not quite obtain the victory here just yet, it is starting to look very, very grim for Losira. And I'm trying to think here, what could he really possibly do here to deal with all of those siege tanks and all of the Terran economy? Even if he somehow, some way manages to magically clean up this fight, it is extremely difficult for him to obtain the victory, and it does indeed look like the Terran mech was a little bit too powerful. Now, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please let me know down below in the comment section what you thought of it. Do you think this format is cool of adding like a best of 3 to a single video? Do you think I should maybe split these games up into separate videos, or do you just simply prefer watching them in one big stretch? Let me know down below what your thoughts are. I would love to receive a little bit of feedback. And other than that, I want to thank you all very much so for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you in the next one.